In this section of the podcast, we call this the cool down. Mike, my husband, and I often will sit around having a conversation, and we thought that we would continue this with all of you as part of the conversation. We wanted to break down some of the stories that weren't told in the episodes, things that we found interesting, and even questions that we could pose to you to start a really good conversation with everybody. So, Mike, what did you think about that episode with Laskey? Wasn't it awesome to hear his voice again?
It's always awesome to hear his voice. It's always good to talk to Laskey. It feels like no time passes
I know, for real.
after you've talked to him. And yeah, he always has great stories. He always has a new story to tell you. You think you've heard all of his stories. And there's always a new one that comes up along the way that you never really knew about Laskey. So yeah, it's good to hear his stories. But the one that I think you should finish telling is the golf shoe story, because I think that's a really funny one, and to be honest, that happened to me not too long ago when I was coaching one of our kids. So
Yeah, I just started laughing because I remembered it all very, very clearly, and he didn't quite finish that story. So what had happened was that he was talking about it. He was playing golf with some pretty big shot people on campus, and it must have been a fundraiser or something, I think is what he said it was. And his golf shoe wasn't in good shape. So the bottom of his shoe was coming apart. And every time that he went walking, it would just flap. It would drag behind him. And he was so embarrassed that his shoe was falling apart in front of these bigwigs that he was trying to come up with different ways to hide it. And I mean, he had to finish the story because I can't do it justice. And I wasn't even there. But yeah, just the things that Lasky gets himself into. I remember one time we were watching, it was a game of profs and coaches against the men's Cal U basketball team. And coach is out there and he's hustling like crazy. And then all of a sudden his gum falls out of his mouth. And you can see his eyes go, oh, what am I supposed to do here? So he bends down, picks it up, puts it back in his mouth and keeps on playing. And for those of us that noticed, we were kind of like, yep, typical coach thing. For other people, they probably didn't even see that it had happened. But these little things were the things that just made his character so awesome. And we were really hot. Weren't we just so blessed to be around him?
oh yeah, it's great because we still call him coach. Like he's still our coach no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your parent. Like you always call them mom or dad, right? So he's always that guy that you'll always call coach because he coached us more in life than in sports, which is kind of funny because I feel like a lot of people that were coached by him carry a lot of those things along with them and remember stories and remember things and kind of relate back to him. At least I do along the way. So yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of hear his voice again and talk to him and see what he's up to again. So yeah, it's fun.
I think what's going to be really cool is having all of the athletes listen back to that conversation. I think it's going to hit people in different ways as it did for us. And everyone's going to have their own memory of it. But just to have his voice recorded and have his wisdom passed on, that's going to be pretty cool for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the other thing that's funny about Coach is that a lot of players will relate to this, but the long days in the winter over Christmas break when we were doing indoor soccer tournaments that started at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't end until I don't even know when.
Well, even the night before we were getting prepped. So we kind of have to give the backstory. Coach had to do fundraisers all the time. This is how he gave kids opportunities to play. He raised money for their tuition. Somehow, whatever he could do to get money to give back, he was going to do it. And so all year long, he was hosting these different events. And this one, I think it was 2 days. Was it back to back? Girls on one day, boys on the other?
Yeah, it must have been a Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, so super, super long days. And we prepped maybe the Friday night before. So a lot of us didn't even sleep. And we would run the concession stands. So, Mike, you have pretty good stories of running concession stands at Cal U because...
yeah, those were the outdoor tournaments. Yeah, those were fun. We would have our concession stand going and we would have to barbecue for everybody all day and sell things. And yeah, I'm not the best to be on the barbecue for that. That's another another story.
Well, we have to tell it now. So Mike is colorblind, and he has no problem saying that. That's
Yeah.
not a big deal. That's just the way he is. But when you're on the barbecue, you can't tell if things are cooked or not. So
Yeah, they were
Mike quickly,
half cooked burgers. It was great.
Mike quickly got kicked off the grill because people were saying, well, who's cooking my burger? These are not done. So
Yeah.
anyway, so going back to the indoor tournaments, just think about it. You've got all of these teams coming in, and they're going to play probably 3 games guaranteed, and then you go into semis and then finals. So your teams could start at 7 in the morning. You could have a game at 7 in the morning, and then the final might be at 9 p.m. at night. And we had a rotation of college athletes who were refereeing, and I was on call for athletic therapy. So I was sitting there all day, and we would count down the hours, be like, what hour are we now?
Yeah, we had like 17-hour days probably.
Yeah,
It was
and
long.
by the end, Mike was refereeing, and he blew his whistle in the final game.
Yeah. Nothing happened. It was just one of those mental brain farts that you failed on the day that you thought you were, the goal was to ref the very first game and then be around long enough to ref the very last game, which probably wasn't a great goal, but yeah, in retrospect, blowing the whistle for no reason and everybody staring at you saying, "Well, what happened?" Well, I don't know. Let's just restart the game. So it's just one of those days that you put in, and I think you recognize that somebody's doing something really special for a big group of people, and to be a part of that and to help and support that and support coach doing that. I think that really made a lot of people realize that it wasn't just for one person, or it wasn't just for coach to do that stuff, or it wasn't for the teams coming in. It was for, it was to get everybody together. It was to get the teams actually working together. So it would be the men's and women's teams that would chip in and do what they could to help.
Yeah, it was fun.
And to do all that fundraising. And I think that kind of made, that really brought, I think, the teams together as well. Like,
Yeah.
you really got to see how both teams would work and really participate and support coach and really do that heavy lifting with him and not just make him do it on his own.
Yeah. And so I think just all of his words of wisdom that he left were pretty good in terms of helping future coaches. So if you're a young person and you can grab a little bit of what his story was and his just what he learned over the years, and then incorporate a little bit of that into what you're doing now, it's going to be pretty cool. And for us too, because there are a lot of times as an athlete, you didn't know what he was thinking. So when he was talking about how he would show up at the field, he'd have a game plan, and then he'd have to change it on the fly. He would set something up, and as an athlete, you'd be like, okay, this is just what we're doing. I didn't know the thought process behind why he was doing that. And he didn't ever tell us because he wanted us to figure everything out. So now as a coach, when you are setting stuff up and you can say, okay, this is my why, the athletes are going to figure it out. We can come up with a plan so that they can be creative and they can be independent thinkers. You can instill all this kind of stuff without actually explicitly having to tell them what to do.
Yeah. It's funny. I can always remember one story of him talking about us going to a game, and I remember it just raining all day, all the way there. We got out of the bus, and it was still pouring, and there were puddles on the field, and we ended up playing, and it wasn't a great game. And I can remember, I don't even remember the outcome of the game, but all I remember is him talking to us in the bus after and just saying, it doesn't matter what is going on around you, that you just need to focus on what your goal is and need to really understand that all of the other stuff doesn't matter, and really, really understand that what you're doing is important. And I think that always related to how he was as a coach, that we're here just to play soccer. All of the other stuff doesn't matter. There's noise everywhere. If he recognized that kids were having a rough day or a couple of guys just weren't into it, he would always try and adjust and always try to change and allow us to kind of, like you're saying, figure out what we really needed to do. And I think that really taught us a bigger lesson in life too, right? So I think he was just he's just one of those people that comes along that you're lucky to have in your life.
Yep. Well, that's it, you guys. If you have any comments and feedback from that episode, you can let us know below in the comments. And I would love to have past players or people that worked with Coach jump in on these comments and share your favorite stories of Coach, because he's a pretty incredible guy.
Yeah, share all those Laskey isms that come along.
There's probably some that we've forgotten. All right, you guys, we're going to sign off. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next cool down.
So long.